not looking at this life as a prescriptive or something to necessarily solve, but to continue with the wonder and to be able to open to it and just watch it sort of go and recognize, like, what a trip.
What a trip.
What a trip. Yeah.
Are we one? Are we infinite? Are we temporary?
Hello, our guest tonight is Trevor Tuttle, an experiential visionary, a visual storyteller, and a very deep person who I've met in the course of my social life. I'm very excited to get to know him better and have this conversation and go one step deeper. Lovely to have you here. Thank you, Trevor.
Pleasure. And a fine monkey arm to you.
Cheers. And this is my I Love Dad mug that my daughter made for me many, many years ago, which I still use with the arm broken.
Yeah, it's worth it. Still special.
Yes, exactly. So Trevor, let's start right from the beginning, because you're a man of many talents, and I understand that you like to be right at the forefront of story and technology. You've had a very incredible history of work you've done in the past that I'm going to let you elaborate on.
Sure.
But take us from the beginning, wherever you feel like telling your story.
Thank you. First of all, great to be here. Pleasure to be here. For me, as you said, I've always been an artist and a storyteller, and technology has been really easy for me. And there's a show called Mythbusters, and I've worked really close with those guys for many years. I was a model maker for George Lucas, and so that was with those guys. But it's always been, and the reason I mention them is there's this unique breed of person that is kind of inventor and artist, and there were about 4 or 5 very similar type people sitting around one time when we realized, oh, mom's an artist, dad's an engineer. So it's like we're sort of a hybrid of that. So I'm really fascinated with the technical. I'm fascinated with technology, but for me, it's all about story. And for me, story gives meaning to an experience. So my biggest focus is to, create moments of meaning, to design experiences, film, or been getting into theme park design, immersive museums and things around the world. But for me, it really comes down to a very ancient understanding of story and how we connect as human beings. And I think it's easy to get lost in all the technology. So for me, the technology is the body. It actually can carry the story forward. As technology gets more advanced, I think the opportunity for telling great stories expands, but the technology can't overtake the story. It's always about the human experience and how we connect as human beings. So for me, I've always been really interested in that scrim between, classic story and future tech.
Well, that's an amazing overlap between tech, story, humanism. But at the same time, just, the way that I know you socially is that we've had conversations about spirituality. We've had conversations about like self-growth and development and things like that. And we had a little conversation about, like, retrospectively looking back on your career and even where you are now. Does that tie in with this path of yours? And so I would really love to know. I would love to explore that through our conversation to see, because sometimes I definitely know with my own life that at the time, like if you asked me 20 years ago, 30 years ago, did I have a spiritual angle on what I was doing? I absolutely would not say yes, because my mind was on other things, and I was very...
It's a safe summation.
Yeah. Well, I was also very driven, and I wanted to make it, and so I was really focused on honing my craft. But if you ask me looking back, where I am now, I realized that the seed of it was always there. I just didn't really know what it was called. I didn't label it spirituality, but I knew I was accessing something outside of myself. So I guess my question to you is, on top of where you're at now, is when you look back on your career as it's moved forward, do you feel that there was the seed of it then as well? And how does it relate to where you're at now? And, you know,
I love that. So, really appropriate question for this moment right now. So I've always been one that can dazzle. And I just remember high school, I kind of disappeared. I was like, we had the heshers and the waivers, so the back eight stoners and the front of the class. I was always back of the bus. I kind of disappeared, but I took an early interest to writing, and there was one writing assignment I remember, and it was, I think it was 11th grade, but we had to describe something. So I went in and I kind of went for it, and the teacher selected that and actually read it to the class. And I just remember it was like the first moment where like people just started turning around and like looking, who is that? And it was this really interesting starting to understand that like through art, like I could establish at least a sense of identity, or at least presence. And so for me, I have quite an imagination, and I've always been working with, a lot of my career has been working with different directors and helping kind of get their vision on their feet. But I've always been really good at spectacle and really good at abstraction and really good at uniqueness and obscurity. And I also realize it's been a perfect place for me to hide, because if you're writing or you're creating things that are dynamic, you can kind of disappear behind it. And I realized there was a certain point where my work plateaued, and it's almost like, there's certain movies by certain directors, and we won't go deep into naming specifics, but when you don't have the substance of story per se, you need dazzle and spectacle to continue to go to the next level to make the story grow, which is at the deficit of story in a certain way. So I feel like for me, I've been able to do a lot of my art and do very dazzling and technical and unique pieces that are very interesting. But like I said, there was a point where I recognized that I'm using it as a shell and hiding behind it more than I am as an opportunity to reveal and grow. And, I grew up with a mom who's a therapist, and I always have had I've always been doing the work. But I recognized also as a kid, I had the, kid meaning, let's go in college. I always had the terms for, like therapy, of sharing and, the language of feelings and things like that. And that also I realized was a bit of a facade that I could, I could have a manufactured vulnerability because I knew the right verbiage and things of that nature. But the reason why I say this is great timing is because I've had an exceptionally amazing career, and I've gotten to a wonderful point, but now I'm in my 50s, and I just am recognizing that it's time to reveal. And a friend of mine he was a coach of mine. He took on his life's work as a devotional practice. And that concept was slightly foreign. But for me, I thought but to me that resonated as something that, because I've always been very spiritual. I haven't been extremely religious as far as deities and organized religion and things of that nature, but I've always believed in a higher presence. And for me, I do feel like there's been a bit of a disassociation. So for me, my intention has been stepping into a devotional practice for my work. And what that means is how much more can I reveal and how much more simple can I make it? And the power of it comes from the simplicity and the vulnerability, not from the spectacle and the dazzle. And for me, that's the transition I've been moving through. And it's really powerful. And I'm entering that journey now. And it's, for me, I can see where it's going, and yeah, it's great. You have to get to a point in your life, I think, where you kind of just don't give a fuck what people think too.
That is so true. And it releases everything.
Oh,
it's
it releases everything. Yeah, there was a show called Search for Intelligent Sign of Life in the Universe, Lily Tomlin, one-woman show, but she played like 6 or 7 different characters, but there was a crazy woman, and she just said the greatest part about going crazy is then you can just let go, like, because people don't expect anything from you, and you can actually, you become an abstraction in a certain way. So for me, I'm moving towards crazy.
I love that. Well, I have so many questions for you off the bat of that.
Great.
I mean, I'll just tell you some of them. One of them is I really want to know what you're actually working on, and how that is, how this approach that you're talking about is actually manifesting in what you're talking about.
I love that.
And then also I want to know in terms of, actually, let's start with this question.
Okay.
So this devotional practice for your work, is it more like you've made an intention that your work is going to be a devotional practice, or do you actually do something every day? Do you have a process to prepare yourself for your day of work?
Well, I have, in all honesty, I'm moving out of one of the heaviest life eras that I've had, which has been about a year, where there's 5 traumatic events that are the most traumatic things in your life, and I've hit every single one of them. So I've just navigated through that, and I'm now stepping back into basically this being appropriately, and I'm going to date the podcast right now, the first day of the year of the fire horse. The snake has shed, and now it's stepping into the fire horse, which for me, first of all, the way I interpret what you're saying is a ritual around the morning. So for me, I get up early, I go for a 3-mile walk. I have a meditation, I have a journal, and I have a planning session. And I spend that time with myself. I've been using that time to take care of others, take care of process, take care of all of that. But I have found myself within the past week with not only an open canvas of time now, but also an amazing project just got greenlit and is moving forward, which is potentially the perfect parallel to encourage this journey.
You know what? I saw you. This is incredible. I saw you 3 days ago. I'm not sure if you're going to see this from my perspective, but I'm going to tell you. I saw you 3 days ago, and it was still the year of the wood snake. And now I'm seeing you 3 days later, where it's the year of the fire horse. And you definitely shed from that day.
Beautiful.
I mean, it's unbelievable. Like,
wow.
you were galloping hard. Wow. I can feel your energy.
It's so wild. My ex, who we were together 30 years, she reached out today. She's like, I haven't heard from you. And I was kind of going through it today. She's like, I need to see you. So she came out and literally we were hanging out and chatting, and we have a beautiful and powerful connection still. And we've just recognized we have, our processes are our processes, but I feel like yesterday was a powerful release of something that I've been carrying. And then today I was mourning that a little bit. And I feel like right now, thank you. I think I'm stepping into it, and I've been shedding so much.
Wow.
That I haven't had the opportunity to actually step into the next step, which I'm grateful for. So
I feel it. I feel it's coming. I can really
beautiful.
feel that.
Yeah. And I guess, one of there's a few things I've been hiding for a while. And when I say hiding, I mean like hiding, like for 5 years maybe. Like there no social media posts. I'm not putting my work out. I've been doing a lot of fine art photography. I've been doing a lot of stuff, but everything has kind of stayed hidden. And I think a lot of that is in relationship to, because that's when I stepped out of my, again, like a 30-year relationship. And I just was I'd been in this relationship basically since my late teens, early 20s. So it was, kind of getting my sea legs back and, kind of experiencing life and things like that. And so for me, part of the hiding is because you want to you want to keep your messes like contained. I'm glad we didn't have social media when I was in high school. But I think for me, one of the things about this is to not hide. And I don't think there was a strong intention to hide. And when I say hide, I mean, you're not putting anything out. You're not revealing anything. I think I've been in the cocoon. And there's many things that I want to do, but I'm really excited about what I'm stepping into now.
It's just funny you were saying about hiding and stuff. I sometimes, and actually, I think later on I want to talk about this because it involves tech as well. But it's funny, the times that we live in are really wild to me because they're everything. It's not one thing. I can't say that back then was this way and this way today is this way. I saw something today that it was like a little meme. It was a clip from Theo Von's podcast.
Okay,
he had RFK Jr. on it, and RFK Jr. made a very candid admission on it. He wasn't even saying it as an admission. He was just like actually casually dropping it in making a point about something else. But today, someone had cleverly edited a video clip from Bill Clinton in 1992, and then put it back to back with this. And the clip from 1992 was the one where Bill Clinton's like, once a long time ago in London, I once, had an experience with marijuana and I didn't like it at all and I didn't inhale. That was the big I didn't inhale line. And then, smash cut to RFK Jr. just like a couple of days ago on a podcast saying, yeah, I mean, back then I was sniffing coke off toilet seats.
Right.
And it's like, wow, that's like, on the one hand, like back then, there were no cameras, so people could do stuff. But on the other hand, people are just admitting to stuff now, and it's like people aren't hiding things sometimes,
Right.
Everything.
I think that's really powerful. Just that process of taking the shame out of transparency.
Yeah.
Just and I think that to me is spirituality in a certain way, is the freedom to be exactly who you are and present in that space, be it doing cocaine off the back of a. I think that was in a relationship to germs, and
that's right. You saw it. Yeah.
I saw that as well.
Yeah, because his point was about the toilet seat,
right? Not about the cocaine. Yeah. It's like the headline wasn't the cocaine; it was the toilet seat.
Exactly,
which is even funnier.
Right. Exactly. So, all right. Well, okay, let's go back to all the stuff that's exciting you right now.
Great. What is exciting me right now?
Yeah, you said your devotional practice in your work.
I've been messing around with AI, and it's controversial, and my son thinks I'm the devil. He's 24, and he should think I'm the devil. And what I mean by that is specifically, he is in academia, and academia and AI don't really mix very well, nor do I think should they. And when we were working a process together, because we've been writing a script together, he basically said, I haven't had the luxury or the opportunity to actually learn the process yet. Where I was saying, look, I've been writing my entire life, and now I've got something that's going to actually create a breakdown for me. Yes, please. Like that can hold me up for 3 days, and then, but he's like, but I haven't learned it yet. And, but my point being, I don't think I'm dabbling in AI for many reasons. I don't think it's filmmaking. It's AI visuals. I think when we start to conflate that, I run a studio and I have a lot of artists that I've hired through the years, concept artists and the like. And yeah, AI is actually it's imposing on those jobs. If I had the opportunity to take AI away and get rid of it completely, I would. I'd snap my fingers, and it is a threat to the status quo. So it's forcing an evolution in a weird way, and whether I agree with that or not, that's just the brass tacks. And looking at, when Trump was starting to create all the tariffs, his whole idea for that was, well, we're going to bring manufacturing back, but he's so out of touch. That like he doesn't realize factories are no longer like 300 people on an assembly line and 20 people in the room. It's 20 people in the room and then 300 robots on an assembly line.
Right.
It's where we're at, and so for me, looking at, I'm sort of circling around a little bit. For me, AI exists. It's confused. It's dangerous. It's enlightening. It's everything. And for me, I feel as though, and having been on the forefront of a lot of this stuff, and again, I'm a big fan of tech, not at the mercy of hindering people's livelihoods, but as an explorative tool. But right now, AI is here, and the level of artistry that I've seen shunning it completely, to me, feels sometimes a little dangerous, because now it's going to be left in the hands of the tech bros, and we actually need conscious artists to hopefully guide it, coax it, create a sustainability within an industry that does create a harmony with artists. And for me, I'm recognizing that the factory of now is, you got to kind of know how to run the robots. And for me, that's part of my interest with the AI. This isn't a domination thing. This isn't a power trip or anything like that. But in truth, it's hopefully, first of all, creating a space where I can actually create some art and create, get ideas out there. But also, as it tries to sort itself into the mainstream, make it humane, and maybe I'm naive in thinking I can do it, but I'm definitely much less naive than just walking away from it. So one of the things I've been doing, and one of the things I'm excited about is, like I mentioned, I do some fine art photography, which is sometimes surrealist and different things like that. So I have a collection of work that I've done. So I'll take one of the photographs I've done, and then I'll put it into like ChatGPT or Claude or something, and have it turn that into a prompt. And then I'll take that and I'll go into something called Comfy UI, which is a different sort of AI visual platform, and have it regenerate the image based on the prompt. And you get the surrealistic interpretation of what that photograph was. And then I'll take that and then make an oil painting out of it. So the final step is an actual oil on canvas, but there's this weird surrealism that happens in the middle. And a friend of mine was telling me recently about how AI is really mirroring, parts of it are mirroring the surrealist movement of the 30s with, Buñuel and Salvador Dali and things like that. There was, even the AI is considered to be hallucinating. I don't know if I agree with all that, but I thought it was an interesting premise. But I feel like one of the things AI is gonna severely tarnish is craft, because as artists we need to we learn craft and we hone craft and we build craft, but AI now creates craft for you. Like it does the brushstrokes, it does the lighting lessons and things like that. And so I think, and that's why I want to get back to the canvas, is because I think hand touched art is going to become a bit of an anomaly. And so for me, I feel like this is the perfect opportunity to go back to the canvas and go back to brushstrokes on canvas, and so I'm excited about evolving and growing in that respect, and bringing it back to the analog. I'm a very analog person in a very digital world.
I am the same, actually.
Yeah,
I've been doing similar things with my music.
Interesting.
I've long felt, a lot of the stuff that's happening in the world right now, like AI taking jobs, whatever, musicians have been having to deal with this since the 90s, because when Napster came, it just immediately decimated.
That was the first industry.
Right? That was it. And musicians have been living since then. It didn't kill the industry, and now in many ways the industry is back stronger than ever before. Vinyls made a resurgence. People love to see live performances, so that things have evolved. Things have evolved. But the thing that I realized from the music industry was that before AI existed, humans kind of roboted themselves. You know, like in the 90s, there was a lot of manufactured processed pop music, you know, like, you know, I'm not trying to speak ill of anyone's taste or anything, but, you know, Backstreet Boys, NSYNC, Britney Spears, you know, in England, all the pop all pretty much anything out of American Idol and you know, that's real talent. Those people can sing, but it's
hard to do.
It's the manufacturing behind it that I'm talking about. It's robotic, you know? It's like you get these incredible singers who can go on stage and sing beautifully well, but then, you know, the machinery of X Factor or American Idol comes behind them and, you know, gets a factory line of producers who, you know, make beats and say, okay, we're going to pick this beat for this artist. It's not real art, you know, the way that the machine gets behind it, right? And we did this. We started behaving like machines to maximize profit in the music industry, I know, because I was in it. I feel like what's happening now is when machines can come and just do everything so much better than that factory line, it's going to actually force humans to go back to what they do best, which is their unpredictability, their genius, their, you know, like so many artists have come blazing out of the gate like Nirvana or Quentin Tarantino or, you know, or George Lucas or, you know, doing something that was never done before them, doing something that was a risk, doing something that was never predicted before them, you know? Yeah, of course, I've heard many people say George Lucas took the ideas out of Seven Samurai or whatever. Like, I've heard that a million times. I've seen Seven Samurai and I see the parallels to the characters and everything. But it's a completely different film, you know? And he did come with a very original vision that was like, you know, something that, you know, no studio was like, saying, oh, let's do this and make a blockbuster, you know? And he really put it out there and put his neck on the line for something he believed in, you know? So I feel hopeful that in a time where we've been trying to predict results of commercial success in many kinds of arts, well, now a machine can do that and it's not going to be interesting. So it's gonna.
It certainly wasn't interesting when the marketing department took over making movies.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, for sure.
And I feel like I feel like this is gonna reverse that. This is my hope. This is what I really truly believe in. Right. And like, going back to something you were saying as well. I don't actually think that like AI is not taking anybody's jobs. What's taking jobs is owners of AI saying, I don't need to employ people. Yeah. It's cheaper for me to get this machine to do it. But if we re-educate ourselves about what is our culture with this technology, it can be empowering for everybody. And that's why I love the angle that you're coming on, saying that, you know, well, you know, some artists have to take some responsibility and find a responsible way of using this, and I want to be one of them. I think that's so inspiring.
Thank you. I think human beings have a condition, which I'll come up with a sexier term, but called "things should be the way they are when I first enter into them," ocentricity, where it's kind of like it's the equivalent of you go to a college town, or, you know, you go to school somewhere, and when you get there, it's like it's dazzling. That's the amazing coffee shop. This is, you know, the incredible little cafe on the corner, you know. And you go back like 6 years later, you haven't been there, and all of a sudden it's a, you know, falafel shop or whatever. You know, it's different, but it's not as good as it was. Like, it's changing, but in truth, you don't recognize when you step into it. It's also you're in the midst of an evolution. You just happen to look at it for the first moment. And you think it's been frozen like that since before you got there. And I saw this. I was working on a pretty big film. I've been on the forefront of something called previs, or virtual production, pre-visualization. So working on this big film, traditionally we take the storyboards from the storyboard artists, and then we'll take them, and previs is the process of creating a virtual scene. And instead of just having a drawn image, you can go in animate the scene, start to drop cameras in and figure out exactly how you're going to shoot it. It's a luxurious process for big films, but when you have massive battle sequences and things like that, it makes sense. But on this particular film, traditionally you take the storyboard, you pin that up on the board. These are the shots we're going to shoot today. The director looked at those and said, but these storyboards aren't even accurate anymore. We developed them through visualization and virtual production. Why don't we just print up stills of that, because it's full color and it looks great. And then the storyboard artist said, well, that's not the way you do it. And so then they ended up striking and shutting down the set, because that's not how you do it. So the entire production shut down because there's a way to do it. And it's interesting, because I think we feel like when we invest into something, we're owed that as a career, and AI is kind of taking and fucking all of that up, And so it's interesting, because I feel like I've been very adaptable, and then I see other people just sit down and try to stop and shut stuff down, and I respect and I understand that, but I think you're right there. It's looking for the right voices to guide it, hopefully, and I think that to be able that aren't necessarily Elon Musk, etc. So thankfully I've been, I'm with some great thinkers and futurists and creative technologists that are looking at ways to again humanize this process as well. It's a genie out of the bottle, but kind of circling this a little bit back to, because in a sense, what was, we were artists in a certain way. So assume for a moment I'm a creature designer and I'm making an ape, whatever it is for King Kong, in space. I would sit and I would do concepts, and I would do this, and then I would do, mood boards, and, do a concept painting, and then a couple weeks goes by and you've got a body of work. Well, now that body of work can happen almost instantaneously. So the thing is, they call them prompt engineers, they call them whatever but really you're just a director. I mean, that's what a director is. Like, for me, spending most of my career as a director, you need to figure out the right words in order to influence the either the actor, the camera, the lighting crew, the story. You need to be able to convey what the mood and the tone is through communication, and that's traditionally words. That's what a prompt is. So you're directing the computer, and so for me, like, directing AI is like directing an artist, meaning procedurally. So it's kind of what's happening is it's sort of moving artists from production artists into art directors. So you need to become a director and communicate. But what I'm noticing with AI and the creation of images in AI, I don't even know if I want to call it art or filmmaking or anything. It's like AI generated imagery. Some of it's slop, some of it's kind of amazing. But what I'm liking about it is it's liberating me to exactly what I was talking about, which is the artistic process. You get the clunky confines of production out of the way, which of course that's the jobs and things of that nature, which I'm not, that's a different thing. But I was able to make what looked like a stop motion film in an evening, and what would normally take years, right? But what I think is happening, and this is going back to what you're saying, I think when the marketing department ran films and it was $200 million to make a big feature, to take a risk on something that not all demographics or all, groups of people are going to embrace was impossible. But now when you can bring the means of production down, you can take bigger risks and actually make statements. And those statements are the art. That's the devotion. That's the story and the pieces that, for me, I'm really interested in it. I'm not necessarily saying it's going to come through AI, but AI does have a way of liberating process so that you can become free to actually dabble in meaning, dabble in just what's it like to be a human being? What are the challenges I'm facing? And be able to represent that without getting caught in the clunky contraption of it all. I think for me, an example, my first job was a model maker. So I was a sculptor, worked for George Lucas, built creatures and spaceships. And, first film was Mars Attacks, and then into like Lost World, and got to work on Star Wars Episode 1, made R2-D2 it's been a very storied career. But one of the big things you need to know in that job is material sciences. You need to understand fiberglass. You need to understand the way, like fiber optic lighting is going to work. You need to be able to cantilever a model out so that you can shoot underneath it. There was such a science to how you fabricate something. But then when you go to CG, all of that goes away. You can build a house teetering on a needle, And so it's an interesting, and I guess one of the big lessons I had as a model maker, there was this model making master named Mitch Romanowski. He's no longer with us, but he did a lot of the Nightmare Before Christmas puppets and things like that. And so, but we made a model airplane, and we were finished with it. I'm like, great, we're going to take it to set. He's like, no, it's not finished yet. So he would take it. He took the wheels off and put the wheels on a sander and flattened the wheels, zzz, zzz, and put them back on. He said, great, now it has weight. So where I'm going with this in a very long and meandering way is it's the understanding of life and how life works that then allows you to bring it into these different disciplines like model making, and for me, AI, it's going to give you a great image. Anyone, it's going to give a great image. But if you don't have intent, if you don't have purpose or direction, it's going to be one isolated great image. But to create an emotional experience, you have to understand what you have to be able to convey the emotions and the feelings of weight and light and all that kind of stuff into it, because you can do anything without it, but it's when you have that understanding and the life sort of that you bring to it. So
yeah, do you feel like CGI was ever able to match, let alone top, what practical effects and model making did at its height?
Right. Okay. Well, this is interesting. Okay. First of all, I'm a model maker through and through, and I scorned video when it came out because I'm old enough to have worked in film. We would shoot 35 millimeter film and on set and stuff like that. I mean, it was the transition when I was first getting into it, but I would scorn video because it looks like newscast. Where it's not pure, right? And then there's definitely a purism about miniatures, right? And there's a quality to them. And then you look at the CG that's happening at that time, and it's like, yeah, it's like it looks plasticky, it looks rubbery, all of that. And I just remember there was one movie that I saw, it was a documentary called Genghis Blues, and it was an amazing story. But it was one of these things where it was shot on really shitty video. This is probably late 90s. It was shot on shitty video. And, it started, I think I saw it at the San Francisco Film Festival, and it started, and I started watching it, and it's like, oh, this looks crappy. And then the story was so powerful that all of a sudden I'm like, and I was just in. And I'm like, you could shoot this thing on toilet paper. Like, and it became really compelling. So where I'm going in a little bit of a roundabout again, I like roundabouts.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, good. Okay, cool. About CG. There was a moment when, as CG was coming on the scene more and more, people would say, well, that's not real. And the CG is kind of like CG creatures would start to show up in Star Wars or whatever it was. And people would be like, that looks fake, or it's not real. And then I would just say to them, hey, by the way, hate to break it to you, they're not really on the moon. That's not really Han Solo, or that's not, that's actually an actor. That's a facade. That's actually not the sun. That's a light going over the top. Like where do you start criticizing what's real and not real? It's just how good is your make-believe, and how seamless can that become? So I think, again, it's kind of like AI is like, it'll never work because it can't even do a hand right until it can do a hand right. Now hands are amazing. Like it's not, the CG is not good until it is, but are those two in competition? traditional model making and CGI. I mean, they're both competing to have great make believe, and what miniatures. I mean, miniatures are incredible. I love them, but they're a luxury because you not only do you need to fabricate it, but then you need a stage and you need to light it and you need to animate it and you need to have a motion control rig, and then you need a bigger crew, and versus like one person with a machine. And again, you know, we're talking about jobs and things like that, but it is an evolution of the industry. And, you know, I think if a visual experience is emotionally effective, then, you know, what more could you say? You know, and I think everything has the way it needs to be told. And I was very much not into CG when it was coming out, you know, but in truth, it's just all make believe. And how good is your make believe?
I get that point. I feel like I can tell, you know, the difference between analog and digital. I can tell it.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that I don't think I can consciously tell it, but I think my subconscious can tell all that missing data. And I think that missing data, you know, or the actually having that data, not missing the analog, it creates an emotional response that's not rational. It's like my mind's not aware of this emotional response. Like when I hear a sound frequency, like if I press a key on this piano and if I record it on this microphone and it's a great recording and I play it back to you through my computer and it sounds exactly the same, for me it sounds different. I mean, it doesn't sound different. It sounds identical. It feels different.
I understand.
Because here I'm feeling the vibration. I'm actually feeling the vibration. Or when I go and see a classical concert and I see cellists and violinists and like real instruments playing, and if I heard a very accurate recording of it and listened to it on my really amazing sound system with absolute clarity, it's still different. Because I just feel like now I don't know if I'm fooling myself, but I feel like it is different.
I think you're probably right. Yeah. I mean, I think my feeling is I can definitely tell what process created what, for the most part. And I agree with you. To me, I'm very much a lighting diva. Like I can't do fluorescence or even LEDs. They have a flicker and they have this saccharine brightness that an incandescent bulb will always, you know, win and rule out. And I don't know if a lot of people notice it or not, but for me, I almost can't even, you know, my house is all incandescent, you know, and I have to order my bulbs out of state because anyway, there's you can get drugs legally, but I can't get my light bulbs.
That's hilarious.
But that being said, I think it's sort of the same where, you're right. I mean, I think it's, as you say, I mean, it's like almost the equivalent of, you know, if you have two guitars and you pluck the E string on one, the other one's going to start vibrating. I think you do resonate off what is happening in front of you. But I think we're passionate about that. And I probably wouldn't recognize the sound qualities that you're talking about, where you may not recognize the visual qualities that I'm talking
100%.
about. Yeah. And the thing is, we're dealing with, like, you know, the difference between shooting film and not film might end up being $1 million on a project. 95% of the people won't notice. 5% will, the aficionados, the passionate, you know, and you know, and hopefully you can be a purist and actually create in that space. When it comes at what I've recognized in terms of like production companies and producers and things like that, the budget of keeping something pure is the cost and reward from the business side oftentimes doesn't quite equate, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I've had. I'm wondering if there's a parallel here. In my career in music, I've had different versions of workflow. I've been in bands pre the digital age, where, you know, studio time was expensive and you were recording on tape, and, you know, you basically had to rehearse the crap out of your music because you were on the clock and it was expensive.
Oh,
So
yeah.
once you get in the studio, it's like, in order to earn that studio day, you had to have like 5 days of like amazing rehearsals and have every transition, every breakdown, everything just like rehearsed. And then you go in, press record, and boom, you're doing it, right? But of course now you don't have to. You can do as many takes as you want. You can do 100 takes, do a comp, do an edit in Pro Tools or Logic or Ableton or whatever. And I've worked both ways. I've worked the way of, let's just like do stream of consciousness, anything that comes out. Like a lot of the stuff that I do with synthesizers is that way, because it's quite hard to control, like with accuracy, what these dials do, you know? So it's like you do different takes of you making crazy sounds, and then there's moments of it that are just incredible and moments of it that just sound awful, and you cut out the awful parts and you stitch the good parts together and you create something really interesting. So I'm a fan of that workflow, but I'm also a fan of the old school workflow, which is like, oh, I can't edit, so I have to just make the performance be the performance, you know? And there is something to be said. I mean, like I said, I like both, so I'm not necessarily saying one's better than the other, but I wonder if you see a parallel, like in terms of having to make something that you're committed to, that you can't really back out of, and you can't fix if it goes wrong. So you have to just prepare so well for that thing, versus the other version where you're just like throwing out anything and see what sticks, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I think, yeah, well said, by the way. The thing I like about film sets and shooting is it's an event oftentimes when done right. I think when I, you know, if you're doing a scene, it's like, you know, okay, everybody shut up, you know, like, okay, shut it down, get this, okay, fire that, you know, you're basically orchestrating a visual experience, you know, and then, you know, it's like, okay, go. And it is a rehearsed sort of moment, like that, the build up to that moment where it's like action. It's just, it's beautiful because it's theatrical and performative and things like that. And then of course now with digital, you can kind of keep that stuff running all the time, and you pick up different pieces. And I mean, I worked on some motion capture movies, and you know, early on, you know, some of the big ones, and you can just pull one performance here and weave the back end of that with something else. And it's a Franken performance, and it's its own collageous sort of experience. But like the perfectionist in me hates that, because I will noodle that thing forever. and, you know, I think I'm moving more and more into like, okay, well, it's go time. Like, let's walk away and call it complete. But I think, so I guess, yeah, because there was a time in film editing where you actually had to cut the film and glue it together.
Right.
And you better cut well.
Right.
You know? and then now you can go in and infinitely tweak. And I don't think that makes for a better process, to be honest. I think it becomes a much more, just, you know, it's a much more, I don't know. I think the life, the thing is, you can't affect one piece without it affecting the other, and all the pieces together as they're sort of happening is what it is in a certain way. And when you start to isolate it, again, you may not know what's wrong, but you just sense something's not quite right up there, you know? So.
Yeah. I want to go back to something you said earlier about the need for meaning in what you're doing. So what is meaning to you in art and your art?
Meaning to me is, it's a great question. It is value. And I think we function as human beings with a value set. That's a scientific way to say it, but like things I believe in. I believe in compassion, you know, I believe in community, you know, and in this time in our country, those things are slightly under fire, you know? And for me, what meaning is being able to convey an emotion or a value, actually, or a value shift through an experience. and to me, that's how you make a piece of art interactive, because again, interactive is immersive is such a buzzword right now, but the truth is, like, the difference to me between a passive painting and an active painting is if it pulls you in and engages, like the value, if you can see, this, or you start to understand what the artist is, this was painted when they just been released from prison or something, you can actually see through the lens of like, this is, you understand the expression. So for me, I think meaning is very much that the value of what value you're trying to convey in a piece of work. And I think, it's more static in static, meaning it's a snapshot in a painting or a photograph. Whereas if it's a moving image, then you start to slalom ski with the value and you start showing the positive and the negative sides of it. That's dramatic build. But for me, that the meaning is, what do I believe? How can I translate this, and how can I communicate this in a way that somebody's going to resonate and feel what I'm trying to say?
And how do you tap into that for yourself?
It's been one of the hardest things. Again, it requires vulnerability. It requires honesty, and journaling, meditation, it's interesting because I think for me, one of the big things that I'm combating is a lot of nice guy conditioning through my life. And when I say nice guy, it's not, I'm a friendly fella, but more people-pleasing type stuff, where it's a bit dangerous. My father was chronic nice guy, and I, to the point where I would almost say, if you want my father's opinion, just give it to him, because he wants you to like him, and he's such a sweet human being. But I watched our family dynamic under his, it kind of all fell apart, and it was unfortunate. In terms of, like, you need to have a moral compass, but one of the challenges of nice guyness is you're sort of moving through shoulds instead of wants. Like, I should do this, I should do that. And if you're asked, what do you want? It's like, I want everyone to get along. I want everybody to have a great time. I want you to be happy. But none of that is saying what you want. You're actually trying to orchestrate something to where your self-worth is being built through somebody's experience of you.
Right.
As opposed to the fear or the joy of expressing who you are and what makes you tick. So I've recognized this recently, that recently, as I maneuver through, again, some life stuff, I've been moving through shoulds, like, I should go over there. I should do this. I should do that. Instead of like, I want to do this podcast, or I want to do this. But I think if you're in a state of people pleasing for too long, your want muscle atrophies. You don't know what you want. And almost when you put a spotlight on it, you're like, I don't know, because it's vulnerable. It's very, you're making statements. And that's why, for me, I think, again, the dazzle lives in the people pleaser, where the courage to step into self and the desire to want has been really difficult, but that is the process. That is like, what do I want? What do I believe in? What will I fight for? And starting to translate that and resonate off of that. And I think that for me is where freedom is starting to come. And that's, again, I'm looking into the abyss more than I'm in it, but
that is a very profound insight, by the way, because a lot of people know, because we live in a society which is often telling people how to say no to stuff, or to say, like, put a boundary, right? But we're not really doing the reverse of that in a way, in terms of actually being assertive about what we actually want. You know, and I feel like a lot of the time when people are assertive about what they want, it's a very generic thing of, I want to be successful, I want to be, whatever. Like, but that's not actually a real want. That's just like a generic. It's it's a version of the people pleasing. It's not really people pleasing, but it's sort of more like reflect.
It's a cultural trapping.
It's a cultural trapping, but it's like to actually connect with yourself and understand what your purpose is and what you need in order to be your best self, in order for you to be the best member of society that you can be. Like the best, if you really want to give to other people, you have to fill yourself up, right? And be able to ask for what you need to make you that person that you can be part of that relationship. Like you need to take so that you can give. And we're not really taught that much.
No, there's a selfishness to that, you know, and meaning an embodiment, you know, like of self. And that one was really tough for me for some reason. Like, you know, I think combination of people pleasing and ADD, like, you know, in college, the teacher would say, anyone have any questions? I would never put my hand up because I'm like, I should know this stuff. I should have studied. Or, you know, like I felt like some sort of, if I raise my hand, they're going to know I didn't do what I was supposed to do, you know, and I don't want them to think ill of me, but the, you know, the, like, hey, I don't get this. What, you know, what, you know, is an empowered state, you know. I think also anger falls in that too. Like anger is very much an empowered state. And this is like, there's certain people I've seen, they can't get angry. And I kind of had that space too. I'd feel guilty after I got angry because that was part of my conditioning as a kid. But now, you know, the healthy expression of stuff as it's rising and things like that. I think it is really interesting. I think, I don't know. There's something really powerful in there, especially, you know, in this time where there's, I think, such a confusion of masculinity as well, you know, and femininity. And, you know, this isn't a macho, you know, sort of thing. It just really, I think there's a beautiful poetry to that stuff. But I think it's been sort of hammered down, you know. Also, I think, you know, wants and desires, I mean, to be able to express sexual desire in our current state, or erotic desire, or, you know, or any sort of craving, not in that respect, but I think, there's some sort of maybe moralistic pretense or something that, I don't know, keeps us a little domesticated. I'm not sure.
Yeah. I often wonder if it's difficult for people to, or even myself, like not even, including myself, to ask for what they want because they feel somewhere inside themselves that there's like not a pure reason for that want. Because I've realized that actually when I feel really good about wanting something, it actually feels good to ask for it. You know?
Right.
And I wonder how much social media has had to play with that, and or just general things just becoming much more temporary, and you know, like it used to be, you know. Like there's that amazing scene in Almost Famous, you know, when he's like the boy is like unwrapping the vinyl and taking the sleeve out and going through his ritual of putting the vinyl on, you know, versus, you know, oh, let's listen to like 30 seconds of this track on Spotify, then skip to the next one, then make a playlist, and this you know, it's like when everything's so easy, the intention behind it is going back to what I was saying with the music as well, like editing versus like rehearsing, you know. And I kind of feel like when people can be intentional about what they want, and they have to really be thoughtful about, why do I want this? Like, you know, is it for a good purpose? Am I going to do something good with this when I get it? You know, like, then it's empowering if you ask those questions and have a good answer for them. Then it's empowering to actually go for that want, because it's like, you know, I put some thought into it, as opposed to I'm just blindly wanting stuff because it's there and I can have it, kind of. I don't know.
Yeah. Oh, there's so much in there. That's very insightful too. It's interesting having a son who's Gen Z. Just had a conversation today. They're going against streaming now. DVDs, they love DVDs. Vinyl, like they love, and I think what I sort of picked up on as you're sort of talking is like the thrill of the hunt is kind of gone with Spotify, because before you're like, ooh, what is that? And you find the album and you got to get the money, and there's just the thrill of the hunt, and then there's a meaning in you get that. But now when you can just put anything on at any time, it just I don't even know what to watch anymore. I'm so lost in that echo chamber of it. Just
everyone has that. But you know what's funny? As you were saying that, it just brought back a memory. Like when I was like a kid, I don't know, 13, 14, I would save up my pocket money, and on the weekend I would go to a record store and I would buy vinyls. In fact, that vinyl behind you, that's Prince signing the Times. I bought that with my pocket money in 1989. That came out, and albums back then were £5.49. I grew up in England, £5.49, and I literally had the 49 pence, like not 50 getting one change. Like I counted pennies to make up £5.49 to go and get that vinyl,
Right. That's amazing. And then it's kind of exclusive. You're in a sense the owner of some really stylistic and amazing music, and like, hey, come check this out, and you can become like the thought leader and everything. Now it's like, it's just spilling out everywhere.
Yeah.
Which is its own, it's its own thing, but it's interesting. I think curious. Yeah, there seems to be a little bit of a backlash with Gen Z in a beautiful way. I think there seems to be some interesting directions going with like return to vinyl and even DVDs and CDs and tapes, cassette tapes, everything like that. So
that's cool.
Yeah,
I guess things skip a generation.
Yeah, yeah.
So earlier on, you were talking about like compassion and community building, or these are things. But then later on, we were talking about meaning and wants. But you were also talking about people pleasing. So I'm going to ask a complex question now.
Let's do it.
Right. So I want community. I want to think compassionately. Those things, right? Do those fall into true wants, or do those fall into the people-pleasing wants?
Community, and what was it? What the other one? Compassion.
Compassion. Like, are they primary? Like,
right. So for me, I love to host, and also, I mean, my job is to create experiences, and the most effective experience I can create is one where somebody's moved or affected, be it a film, be it a theme park attraction, whatever it is. And I would say that it might be people pleasing if there was more of an ego involved, but I don't need my name on anything. I really don't. Like, I don't care for awards. I think they're byproducts of, they're afterthoughts of an experience, and you can't control that. It's out of your hands, So to me, I feel like I'm very egoless in my pursuits. And for me, the witnessing of that connection without necessarily needing to be like, that was me, makes me think that it's not a people-pleasing thing.
Amazing.
Yeah. And I think, I love bringing people together. I love human connection. I love, I'm endlessly fascinated with human beings, and I love just connection, and just like, I recently sold my place and was a free agent, and I could have kind of traveled anywhere. And I've been in LA for a while, quite some time. And I'm like, oh, Berlin? Am I going Northern California? Like, the world was kind of my oyster, but then I just realized I'm not done with LA, and it's a really interesting time here. It's very scrappy. I mean, there's a lot of, what I'm calling the tourists are leaving, meaning not the tourists, but the people that have been working in the film industry when it was easy and you know and fun, obviously, you know, all that kind of stuff. But like it gets a little rough and people take off. But I feel like it's a little scrappy right now, and you know, there's some murmurs and things sort of brewing. But what I really love about this place is, you know, you'll be at a dinner party and, you know, the person on your left like made that one piece for the, you know, Jet Propulsion Lab engine that did the test, and oh, this person created a certain microfabric, you know, that it revolutionized theater. You know, there's just a really interesting watering hole of dynamic people, and for me to create that space where dynamic ideas come together and, you know, 1 + 1 = 3, you know, new ideas can be born and things like that, I think is my greatest passion. So
that really resonates for me, because I, like many people, had got to a point where after, you know, COVID and the fires and the writers' strikes and like just everything, I felt like there was just like a heavy cloud hanging over the city, and I really just wanted to get out. And you know, I spent a lot of time in Europe last year, and I found that actually kind of a lot of the problems that we're facing here, they're facing over there too. Different flavor of it, but like, but it's sort of still there. And I realized actually the city still has some magic to it, and it's that energy of people who have a passion to do something. You know, like you have an idea, and the idea isn't your ego. It's not an idea that, oh, I want to do this to get the glory. It's like, I'm just so interested in this.
Yeah.
And to me, that is a spiritual pursuit, honestly, because it's like your search for meaning and like your search for your life having, you know, some sense of curiosity and discovery, you know, and then you having the gumption to follow that. No, I think that's really beautiful to me.
Yeah. Somebody once said, you know, they took America and they tipped it on its edge, and everything loose rolled to California. And yeah, and you look at, like, you know, California was kind of founded by the weird uncle that had a crazy dream, you know, be it Gold Rush or film or whatever it happened to be. And I do think that it still attracts a very strange dreamer, you know. It's interesting that way. Yeah.
Other than the practical thing of dreams are actually the precursor to actually making something become real, do dreams have any value for you? Because you spoke about value a lot.
Right. Dreams can embody many forms. Are you talking about the physical or the actual dreams during sleep, or the embodiment of manifesting a vision?
That one.
Okay, great. B. Good, because I don't dream much. I think I do, but they're elusive. I don't. My dream catchers are broken. I gotta have them tuned up. As far as manifestation, yeah, I learned something really powerful recently, and I'll be completely honest, because again, I've been tending to the home fire, so I haven't really been, you know, I'm getting ready to now grow, and you know, I've gone through so much transition and loss and grief and lots of other things, and I'm grateful, and I haven't been happier, you know. So, but. You know, I was actually with my mom recently, and I just had gone through something, and I was just chatting with her, and I literally just started crying. I'm like, where's that kid that got the job at George Lucas's model shop? Because when I got that job, people told me there's no way you'll get a job there. That's like the chocolate factory of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Nobody's coming in, nobody's going out. Like people park, and I'm like, oh yeah, you know, and so. I realized, you know, over the last sort of 5 years, I've been involved in a lot of stuff, but nothing had really taken form. And I realized, you know, I'm managing a lot, but I've been learning more that the foundation of life and movement is making decisions, you know, and as a leader, when it's time to make a decision just needs to be made. Whether you have all the information or not, then you got to go by your own truth or your own gut. But the thing is, I think what I'm starting to understand and what I learned recently is decision making isn't a single concept. You have the war of decision, where you come up with a choice. I think this was on Jay Shetty's podcast with Tony Robbins recently or something. I think they were talking about this, just throwing a little nudge that way. But the first part is the war. Like, you got to come up with a choice. And I'm good at that. Like, okay, I'm going to do this. Tomorrow I'm going to do that, But then the second part is you have to commit. So first you go through the war, then the commitment is actually throwing it into the future. Like, you're actually seeing it through. Like, okay, I'm going to do it. Okay, I'm going to walk, I'm going to walk 47 miles before 5 a.m. every day.
Is that what you do?
No, but usually I plan about as much obnoxiousness as that. But then the third part, and this is the part that I think I'd been neglecting for a long time, is the part that does sort of fall in alignment with that a little bit more, which is the resolve. You have to get resolved, which is basically, now that you've made the commitment, you need to resolve that it's done. You can watch a basketball player and you look at them and you can see that they're going for the hoop. And you can tell who's resolved that it's going to happen and who's still questioning it. And I think that's sort of that's a bit of the magic is and you can call it manifesting. You can call it, I think, human beings really want to help each other. There's a few fucked up people on this planet, and, unfortunately they get into really big positions, but, but I mean, like for example, this is a beautiful house and amazing musical equipment. And probably the amount of brains and hands that went into the stuff in this room is probably 47,000 minimum, on certain pieces. It's just one person with a match can come and take it all down. For the most part, human beings really want to help. And I think the more specific you can be about how you want help or what you're moving towards, is the more not only people know how to help, but it also can resonate off of their meaning as well. Like, oh, I want to be a part of that. So I think it's the resolve that creates the courage and the confidence. Because when you meet somebody and you're like, oh, that person is going to be, that person is going to do that. You just know. And then that happens. It's unstoppable. And the universe actually wants to help you as well, but it's until you have that resolve that, people are like, I don't know. I don't know if you're ready, and I used to say that, like, I used to get a lot of opportunity and still do knocking at my door. And sometimes I'm not ready for that opportunity, but I know I still have to take it because opportunity is not going to knock the next time. It's like, cool. Oh, you're I'm sorry, you're a little caught up and stuff. Cool. No, finish what you got to do. I'm going to go over here, and I think, so I think, it's really important to take that opportunity, even if maybe it's not quite perfect time, because it becomes a bit of a prophecy. What's that?
You can grow into it.
You can grow into it.
Yeah,
that's probably what you need to grow.
Yeah. When you were young, not that you're not young now, but when you were a young lad, what was the first instinct that you got that you were a creative person? How did that happen for you?
That's a beautiful question. So it's interesting being, having having a career where I'm considered an artist, or having a lifestyle that has the trappings of art. I have a canvas and some paint. There's art effects of art like around, right? And there's a lot of people that are just like, I wish I was an artist, it seems to bring out people that have either regret or something. And for me, I'm just like, art isn't a trapping. It's not a medium in a certain way. It's, you might be sculpting, but I've seen people be so mechanical when they sculpt, but then somebody will sweep the floor with so much, poetry and grace and embodiment, so for me, creativity, I think, is really just not taking things at face value. I heard a really interesting thing about psychedelics recently about how, we get a very programmed understanding of life, and we sort of go with it, and we have stuff kind of figured out. But what's nice about psychedelics in a healing modality, and for me, as I've been going through my processes, I've gone through some pretty powerful psychedelic healing ceremonies. But what for me is really powerful is it allows you to to not take life for granted, and you can break it apart, and it really kind of, it takes the obviousness out of it, and you got to rediscover it. And, it's an interesting process. And to me, I think creativity is that ability to look at something and not get lost in the way it's completely defined, and, oh, what's this? Even with words and sentences and that kind of stuff. But I think since I was a very young kid, I was very much into, wordsmithing and joke making. Like the first joke I made up was, it's been a while. I think it was 5th grade. There's a burrito driving down the road. It pulls over at a hotel and goes and says, "Hey, I want a room for the night." And the proprietor's like, "What are you talking about? We don't serve, we don't serve your kind." And he's like,
That's such a kind.
"We don't serve your kind." And he's like, "Wait, I saw your sign out on the road. It said gas food lodging." And so, burrito being gas food.
That is very advanced.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I think for me, that's creativity. And I think for me, I've always loved to play with words, and I'm always making stuff up, and I would always get, I would never have the right words. So I'd make up words, by putting stuff together and stuff like that. So for me, I think that's creativity is just kind of, yeah. So yeah, I think we're all creative. I think some of us feel like we're not, or we get stuck in trappings and things like that. But for me, I think I took I've great artistic skills when it comes to drawing and painting, and I can figure stuff out really easily and things like that. And but that's not creativity in and of itself. That's just being able to massage tools into, like, that's a way to convey your ideas. So I'd say with language was the first.
Did at any point in your youth or later, did it kind of merge with your existential thoughts about, why are we here, or how are we here?
So again, I'm kind of hitting that, that's a good question. I think I've been fortunate to have a lot of amazing friends in my time, and I've always had a lot of community and a lot of people around me. And again, in the last year, which we'll call the year of the snake, it's been very much about attrition and release and shedding and all that kind of stuff. And I found myself like coming out of this going like, I don't even know who my friends are. I haven't been keeping in touch with people. I've moved to a new neighborhood. I don't know anybody in this, it's been a really wild experience. In that, I find myself saying, what am I doing? And I want to cling to stuff, but there's nothing to cling to, and I'm releasing stuff. And so I think as far as the existentialism and I find myself right now, like, what's happening? What is happening? Because in a certain way I've had a life where I had a marriage and a son, and he's gone off to college, and I've almost released that. Now it's like me sort of standing. And I think that's what's most interesting and appealing. And if we're talking about existential crisis, I don't know if I've ever been caught up in the why are we here, or even like a greater purpose. I've always been questioning what's my purpose, and I think I've overthought that, a lot, but my purpose might, that's a mantra that I'm sort of playing with. But yeah, I think for me, when not connected to the things that bring me meaning, I feel really empty and lonely. And I think right now, for the first time, it's become the opportunity to lean into that. And what is that? What is that feeling? As opposed to let's fill it with whatever TV show, drug, relationship, whatever. Like what does the absence feel like? And even intentionally kind of releasing more to see what is really in there, and I think for me, my process right now is becoming more an investigation of what is core self, as opposed to, I think it started as a big, like, what's going on, but yeah, it's I think that's, again, as I'm stepping forward, as I'm coming out of hiding, as I'm moving more into taking that meaning and using the tools that I know in order to say something that I really believe in and that I really connect to. And the resonating string here, the art resonates between two people, as opposed to spectacle. That's the courage that I'm moving towards right now.
And that's beautiful. And you mentioned that you meditate every day, as part of your process to get into that space where you're making your art. Is what you just talked about now an aspect of your meditation?
Yeah, for me, meditation really, I have a very active brain and imagination, and it tends to be very boisterous and wanting to be the center of attention. And it's not always the most best, pure and amazing thoughts. I can, there's a lot of self-sabotage and things like that. But for me, the process of meditation has become a learning, and it's probably been 20 or 30 years that I've been meditating. Probably since, probably 25 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is there a specific method that you use?
My early teachers were probably in the Vipassana, but I heard it called Vipassana recently, which...
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think I was like, no, so Vipassana, but also transcendental meditation, David Lynch style. TM is interesting to me, but I don't think I have an organized form. There was the person who got me into meditation. His name is Vinny Ferrara. He was leading I was living in San Francisco at the time, but I met him, and his job, he's covered in tattoos. He's Italian. And he describes himself as like, I'm the guy that when I walk down the street, women chicken wing their purses. But his job was, he had a difficult upbringing, like was throwing drugs and a tennis ball over the prison wall to his father because his mom's arm was too weak from too many drugs, and his father ripped off an airport, like just crazy stuff. And it's a story he freely shares, but he found liberation through meditation. That inner anarchy that was going outward, like he would turn inward. But when I met him, he was leading the death row inmates at San Quentin in meditation, like the hardest of the hard. And so he and I really connected. And so he had a group, and the group is called Dharma Punks. And it really, like a lot of blue hair and a lot of, mohawk and alternative, and I was imagining saffron robes and, like holiness, but this is like, these were people who are suffering, and I got along with that. So from, I would start to go to his group, and it'd be like a 45-minute Dharma talk, and then you go into like 45 minutes of meditation. But I don't know if it's a formalized, structured practice. It's really just sitting in silence, observing thought, releasing thought. Don't cling to it. Don't entertain it. Observe it, release it. And for me, that's the most freedom, as according to Buddhist precepts, to be human is to suffer. All humans suffer. We share that in common. And all suffering stems from the mind. So in a sense, if you can disconnect the mind in a certain way, or disassociate when appropriate, then you can release suffering. And I found that is true for me.
Oh, that's beautiful. Wow. Thank you for sharing that.
Of course.
Wow. That's been an amazing conversation. I'm so glad that we actually had this conversation.
Yeah.
And I'm really looking forward to continuing it on and on and on and on.
Me too. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Thank you.
If there's anything else you'd like to add or share, let me know.
No, I think, yeah, I think, well, I had a chat today with a friend, and this friend was talking about, because we started talking about medicine journeys, psychedelics. She'd done ayahuasca and then, had, like got a bunch of self-help books, as I have, and are seekers and healers, right? But just the terminology that she was using is like, well, it didn't work. Like the ayahuasca didn't work, and a lot of people are trying this, it didn't work. And then I got these books and they didn't really work. And to me, I just felt like that was almost a bit of a sad interpretation, because it becomes prescriptive and diagnostic at that in that sense. And if we recognize and look at everything that we're doing as a procedural building, because you don't really understand what work and don't work is. Like you're adding to the pieces and it's all sort of growing. So I think for me the most dynamic thing is to understand that like we are exactly where we need to be, even if we feel completely stuck. That's the season we're in, and to recognize that we're in the season of inward now. Now we're going to be in the season of outward. Like, every year has seasons, and, we have seasons as human beings, and they might be years where we're in winter, and not looking at this life as a prescriptive or something to necessarily solve, but to continue with the wonder and to be able to open to it and just watch it sort of go and recognize, like, what a trip.
What a trip.
What a trip. Yeah.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you, Trevor.
My pleasure.
That was beautiful.
My absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are we one? Are we infinite? Are we 10?